Hi, this is Dave from Steel City Drones Flight Academy. Today we are here to review the very highly anticipated Parrot Anofia USA. This is a drone that was first starting to be advertised by Parrot, I think at least 6 months ago. And this was actually supposed to drop a couple months ago at least. And now it's finally here. We got one of the advanced copies of this, and we're now able to put it through the ringers, gave it a really good testing for a week's period of time, gone through everything I think that you're going to want to be interested in, and to give you a really good review. So as I mentioned, a lot of people are very highly anticipated on this drone to see what it's going to be, because a lot of the things that it has been advertised in really fit a very specific missing gap in the drone industry. What I mean by that is there has not been a middle of the road and as far as price line and features and functionality really on the market. We've had a really high-end, really top-of-the-line drones out there that fit those needs really good. We've also had a lot of lower-end and entry-level, lower-grade type of aircrafts out there for price-wise and features and functionality, but nothing really in the middle. And there's a lot of people out there, a lot of my viewing audience, which I'm sure is watching this, cannot use Chinese-based manufactured drones for one reason or another. So between that and the pricing, that's a lot of people wanting to be able to see this aircraft. So we're going to give you a very comprehensive video, and since this is so comprehensive and rather long, you're probably not going to want to watch this or have enough time to watch this all at one time. So what we've done for you is, after this little intro here, we've actually chaptered all the subject matter, and then we put a timeline where it is in the video so that you can jump around to things that you want to see the most, and as you come and have more time, you can come around and come back and view it again. So with that said, let's get started. So as we go through this video, we will be comparing the features and functionality of this aircraft with a wide variety of different aircrafts and a wide variety of different price ranges. We're doing so to give you a reference point. It's not meant to say this aircraft is better than this aircraft, because at the end of the day, it's all about your budget and what you are trying to accomplish to get out of a drone. Likewise, just like when you're going car shopping, are you going to be going to look for a BMW when you're more in the Nissan price range, or are you going to look for a Nissan when you're trying to go 0 to 60 in 3 seconds and take corners at 60 miles an hour? It's also important to note that there is no such thing as a perfect drone. The best drones in the market out there, and there's a wide variety of them, they all have their pros and cons. There is no one drone out there that we can say does everything efficiently well. Please check our other videos out there, and you'll see we always try to keep things real, and you're going to find that there are limitations to anything out there. So with that said, keep that in mind, and let's go ahead and get started. So let's start with a quick summary of some of the things that Parrot has been advertising that has gotten a lot of people excited about. The first thing is, this is a drone that is manufactured in the United States, Massachusetts to be specific. And that is a big deal for a lot of people who cannot use foreign-based made manufactured drones. So that's going to be a very nice addition here till we have something in the market for. Another thing is that the data encryption and security is very high. So a lot of people do not like the DJI drones because they feel that their data can get compromised or they're shared without their permission. So that's a big thing. Another thing is that this is rated to what's called IP53 water resistive. So the higher that number, the more water resistive to, obviously, to liquids and also dirt and debris. A lot of people like DJI Mavic 2 Enterprise Duals, but they don't like the fact that you cannot fly it in the rain or the snow, which is a no-go for a lot of public and first responders. So with that said, That's all that stuff right here is where those are touted features here that are real, and they do work, and they are as advertised, that I think a lot of that viewing audience is going to really like. Now let's start going into some of the other features. And for the camera, this is a dual camera. So it has a FLIR Bison thermal camera, as well as a two-part RGB camera that switches between two different cameras, so that gives you zooming capability. So this is up to 32 times digital zoom, and it also can be zoomed in for the thermal as well. So we're going to go over all the camera aspects out of this aircraft as well. It comes with this very nice waterproof case, all the accessories that are in here. So as you can see here, we're comparing the size of the aircraft to the Mavic 2. And you can see that the overall size is a little bit on the smaller side. Now that could work well and a little better for indoor flights. All the accessories that you see on your screen come with the standard kit. Now you'll see that this kit does come with 3 aircraft batteries. Normally, when you purchase a drone, you're only going to get 1 battery. So right off the bat, batteries can be anywhere from like $170 to $200 a piece. So right off the bat, you're getting added value with extra aircraft that you won't have to factor in and budget later for. So keep that in mind when you're factoring all the other things into account. You'll see that this aircraft folds and unfolds very similar to other aircraft in its class. This does not have any accessories with it as far as things like a nighttime strobe beacon or a loudspeaker or a spotlight. Because of how light this is, how small this is, you're going to have to be very careful with what accessories that you put on here. I could say that, if you want to put a tiny little, very light strobe beacon on here, that would be probably the only thing that you can do. Next, let's talk about how we actually put a micro SD card into this aircraft, where we have this little clip in here, and they're actually held in secured, sort of like your old SIM cards on a cell phone are. And at first that kind of threw us off, that I'm looking for the little USB slot to push it into. And finally, when I took off the battery, I saw this, and I realized what we have here. There is no obstacle avoidance other than one camera on the bottom, down right here. And now what that does help is that will help stability when we are flying indoors when we don't have GPS. Because when we want to fly indoors, and we did some indoor testing, it was actually very solid and it didn't move around. But it does have that bottom camera on there that will help the indoor flying. Next, we're going to talk about the remote controllers. These are called the Sky Controller 3s. As you see on your screen here, this is a basic remote. The only way that you can turn this on and off is to flip it up and down. Now, if you want to use a tablet, we have to use this tablet holder right here. Because you can put a cell phone into this holder, but if you want to use anything like a tablet, we have to use and put this on here. Now, the tablet holder itself, you have to put it around here. You have to strap it in, and then you have to wrap around this elastic cord underneath the remote controller, and then it clips in on the very opposite side of here. Once this is on here, attached to the remote controller, now to be able to, let's say, for example, you went up, you flew for about 15 minutes, you have to come down and look at your data, or you have to do whatever you need to do. You're going to have a small break in between, let's say 20, 30 minutes in between flights. You're going to have to take off your mobile device holder and close it this way, or else this will go ahead and drain this battery. So we did several tests from 100% all the way down to 2%. Every time we were just around between 2 hours and 35 minutes to 2 hours and 40 minutes of time. Now again, that's when we're completely on and open all the time. So you could extend that if you close this, and you have to, again, you're going to do that. But let's say you have a full day's worth of work, that you're going to be, let's say you're going to be flying for the majority of the day. Well, then what you're going to be up against then is to use like a USB charging pack here, one of those portable ones that can boost and charge your controller while you're flying as well. So other things about the remote controller is that you'll notice here that there's these two little knobby type of adjustments. One of them here, this one here is for the camera tilt, and this one here is for zoom. Now, the zoom isn't too bad. I kind of like that. It kind of works pretty well when you want to be able to go zoom in and out. That's nice instead of not having to have to tap on the app. Coming from the DJI background of 15,000 flights of DJI, I was constantly looking for jog wheels, and there are no jog wheels. The second thing about this is that with these little knobs out here, I wasn't really happy with how the smoothness of the tilt was. You can adjust it somewhat, but again, I like the wheel better for adjustment. I'm used to it. Other than that, there is a button on here to reset the camera, and a button on here that will control either you want to take a picture or for video. And there is no HDMI out of the remote controller. So you cannot take your video feed directly out of your controller to go to like an external monitor, for example. You can't do that with at least this. Now, there might be ways that you can do that with your mobile device, that you can broadcast wirelessly off that, but it's going to have to be broadcast wirelessly through that, and like Apple TV, for example. There is no flight control switch on board like all of your DJI aircraft have. So there's no way to be able to put that in different modes. You have to use that in the app and then change it in the app only. So let's talk about how this aircraft takes off and gets off the ground. It is more of an automated process. You don't have necessarily the ability to start the motors and take off manually through your control sticks. It all works through a button on the app or a button on the remote controller. The button on the remote controller is not really usable when you're using the tablet because it's hidden behind that tablet. You really can't see those buttons. So again, if you're a longtime DJI flyer, it's going to take you some time to get used to just using the button on the app for that. Now, let's talk about flight times. Through our amount of time that we saw with this aircraft, we saw consistently 27 to 28 minutes of flight time. So let's average it out around 27 and a half minutes of flight time. So you understand our testing, like we always do with everything that we fly, we always get on the ground and land by 20%. We do not fly batteries down very low because it does damage batteries. It gets them very hot, and that compromises the integrity of the batteries. So you might be also saying, well, what about your elevation and all that stuff? In the winter months, we were flying anywhere between 39 degrees to 47 degrees outside, and we are approximately our corrected altitude of only 1,000 feet above sea level. So let's talk about the aircraft's overall level of flying performance. So we had a full week's worth of flying data with this aircraft in a wide variety of weather conditions and flying conditions. We can tell you that the aircraft does meet our minimum amount of flying stability level overall. There are other aircraft out there in the market that do not fly as good as this aircraft, but this aircraft is not going to fly the best out of all the top of the line aircraft. So you got to keep that in mind, keeping apples to apples, and hopefully this footage will give you a good indication to make your own decision. There is no way to put this aircraft in manual mode, which is the ATTI mode for DJI. Why is that important? Well, if you have followed any of our previous videos on anything, you will know that we are a big proponent of being able to fly manually and learning how to fly, train and learn how to fly manually and take over the aircraft as needed when we have a consumer grade GPS system on board, such as we do here. because there are limitations to those. I'm not going to go into there. You could check out some of our other videos on what those are. But there can be cases where the stock internal GPS can get compromised. And that's not just with this aircraft, that's with all aircraft that basically have nothing better than a consumer grade GPS system on board. So there's no way to put this into a manual mode. Let's talk about the noise of the aircraft. Now, Parrot says that this is the lowest audible drone in its class. We're gonna, in a second here, we're gonna let you listen to a clip of a recording so that you can hear exactly what it's like. But comparing that to the Mavic 2 Enterprise, this is definitely louder than that aircraft. So in our guesstimation here, and our best guess that we try to do a test with, to equal out to where this aircraft is about the same noise overall audibly, we have to have this aircraft further away to be at the same level. So here right now you can hear the overall sound. You can see this flying in the outdoors in the snow test, but listen to the sound of the aircraft. So now let's talk about the batteries. The first thing is they do not have self-battery heaters in them. At least there is nothing in the user manual that references a self-heater or the way to activate that, or any instructions or any documentation about that on Parrot's website or through the user manual. So we do not believe there's any heaters in here, which can be a problem if you want to fly these aircraft down fairly at lower temperatures and into the 20s, for example. So that could also affect the flight time significantly at the least. As it's sold in this kit and comes in this kit, it comes with a USB charging hub, and it can take up to 3 hours to charge a battery. So we did a test where at 20% remaining on this battery, we took it to 100%, and we did this with several of these batteries, and it took 3 hours to charge a battery. There is no self-discharge system into these batteries that will bleed the battery voltage down, so there's nothing to do that. So let's say that you fully, you charge these batteries, it's at full charge. Now, let's say 14 days go by, you have no use to fly or no need to fly, these batteries are fully charged, you're going to have to go out there and fly these batteries down to storage voltage if you don't want to get them damaged. This is a charger that's made by Colorado Drone Chargers. Colorado Drone Chargers makes a wide variety of chargers for a number of different type of batteries in the aircraft very well. We highly recommend them. We use them for other different brands as well. Now, this can charge up to 4 aircraft batteries at the same time, plus it has 2 USB up here as well. So you can go ahead and charge a remote controller and let's say maybe your mobile device all at the same time here. And what's a great part about this is that you can charge up to 4 batteries at one time and do so and have all 4 done within an hour's period of time or less, depending upon how much time, how much of your battery charge is on there. But within, let's say it's down to 20%, you should be able to get back up to 100% inside an hour on 4 of them in a row. Can't beat that. Now, we also did a rain and snow test. We did fly this in both rain and snow, where it was actually, we got 3 inches of snow one day. And I do have to say that this IP53 rating does hold up very well and no problems whatsoever. So it is definitely holding up to its hype, and I feel very comfortable and confident to say that this is a good solution when you need a drone to fly it in all weather conditions as far as the rain and the snow. Now, what about extreme conditions? Yet that is yet to be determined. So let's talk about the camera. So the camera, as I mentioned before, is essentially a 3-in-1 camera. So it basically has RGB capability as well as a thermal capability. On the RGB side, it has 2 different cameras that it switches back and forth from, and then it kind of blends them together electronically through digital zooming. and it does have up to 32 times zoom capability. What we found is that it has a very good efficient range between 9 and 11 times overall zoom. And while it is a digital zoom, we found that range to be very good. Now we noticed that when we're like from 2 times zoom all the way up to like 8 times zoom, it is a bit softer, and the stability on it is not quite as good as in the different areas that it's more efficient, like 10 times, for example. Now, Parrot advertises that you can see details of up to 1 centimeter of precision up to 50 meters away. So that's a pretty big claim. So what we did was we had 3 different aircraft and we inspected a cell tower. Now we had all 3 aircraft precisely at 50 meters away. And then we went in and just kept zooming in and zooming in and zooming in. So what you're going to see now are the tests from all 3 of our aircraft. So we're going to use and compare it with the Mavic 2 Zoom, not the Enterprise, because the Enterprise doesn't have zoom capability. But we went in there and did that against the Mavic 2 Zoom, which has up to 6 times zoom capability. And then we also compared it to the higher end Matrice 300 with the H20T camera. So here's those results. So those are the zoom tests. Overall, we were very impressed with what we saw because, as you can see, we were comparing the highest level and highest quality level of cameras on the market, which are very expensive. And the overall price range of the H20 camera is going to be higher, just on that camera alone, higher than the cost of this aircraft by itself. So the value for what you're getting is very impressive, and we were very happy with that overall zoom capability. So that is an advantage that you have with this camera, to be 10 to 11 times zoomed and more clear. That is definitely an advantage that this aircraft has. Now, we also wanted to do another test to really kind of show the limitations of the overall quality of the zoom. So we did a license plate check. We wanted to see how far away we could read a license plate without, and still be visible. So we started out about 500 feet away, and we tried this also to see if like 32 times zoom, which is really digitalized and pixelized, would actually be a little less visible than 10 to 11 times, even when it was actually coming in a little more. So we tried that test as well. So we saw sometimes we could read it at 225, 230, but outside that it was very inconsistent and pixelized. Nevertheless, you'll see as we were in a parking lot just zooming in and out, you can still see clarity as when you zoom in. But when we always seem to want to go ahead and use a benchmark as with how far can we read a license plate away. Overall, those are what we're getting on the zoom side. One of the things that we really like about this aircraft is the quality of the thermal camera for the value that you're going to get with the price range that it has. With that said, there isn't many options out there for mid-range thermal cameras in this price range. And we feel that this really does meet a very new benchmark for other aircraft to follow. And that is all thanks to the FLIR PASSON sensor that we have. Now, it's also important to note that this camera is not radiometric. So you cannot get necessarily precise data of every single spot on the pixel of information of what is the temperature range for that. And you can't just like hit your index finger on the screen and it'll tell you what the temperature is there at the screen. It does not do that. Now this has what's called spot functionality, which in spot functionality, you can go ahead and change those sliders and really dial in colder temperatures or hotter temperatures, but it really doesn't tell you what those values are. So it's sort of like a pseudo isotherm capability, but not specific enough to be able to dial in very specific temperature ranges that you want. So there, keep that in mind for what you can do with that. It does have MSX technology, which is nice, as you can see on the screen right there. But something a little that we weren't expecting to happen was that at nighttime, we really lost the MSX completely, where it has that video overlay and to really get a lot more that contrast and blend of that camera. Now obviously that makes sense because obviously the lower light that you have on the video side, the less information that you're going to have to be able to blend. But even as you can see on the Mavic 2 Enterprise Dual, even that still at nighttime has that MSX and is able to go ahead and still blend really good with picture information. We just are not seeing that very well here on this side. Now this does, just like the Mavic, this has the ability with the slider to be able to dial up or dial down how much of the blend you want to see with the FLIR compared to the RGB side. And again, you can see on your screen how we can have the thermal image right in the middle of the screen for a quick comparison, which is good more for daytime analysis of comparing the things when you need it that way. So what we have up here is a test that we're going to show you a wide variety of different aircraft out there. But it's important to note that we have to compare and keep that all subjective and compare apples to apples, because we are going to show you higher levels of resolution for thermal camera and higher end, but that's at a much higher price range. We did the same location in the same test over and over again with a bunch of different cameras. So we compared this sensor to the Mavic 2 Enterprise Dual, and then we compared that to the Zenmuse X-T2 camera, 336 lines of resolution camera, which is common in both the Matrice 200 as well as the 300. And then also the new H20T camera on the thermal side of that, which is 640 lines of resolution. You'll see that I used my son as an actor, and then he went in and out of the woods. And you'll see exactly, we were exactly the same height, right around 100 feet, about 115 feet high, and we were approximately about 150 to 175 feet away, and we try to keep that as consistent as possible. So here is the results. As you can see, the FLIR Poisson sensor holds up very well. And for the value of what we're getting, I think that this sensor really does shine in that price range and is a great value and feature of this aircraft. Because right now, in the lower range price ranges, there's a lot out there that are nowhere near as good as this sensor is. So we want to keep things apples to apples when we're comparing. Now let's talk about the flight app. It's just more like, I would say, I'm going to compare it like it's going from Android device to iPhone or vice versa. Things are just in different places, and when you're so used to things being in certain places, you're kind of scratching. What I did was I spent a couple days just trying to get myself familiar with the app itself before I even went out and flew this, and it was still a little bit difficult. So I will say, again, this is my own disclaimer, in my opinion, that it is not as intuitive as the DJI brand or as polished as the DJI brand, but overall, it's just different. I'm not going to say it's bad or any worse or better. It's just different. Now, there are a few things that I did not like about the app, which I would like to share with you. The first thing is that when you're on the live screen, where especially on the thermal side, and you want to look at the live picture, if you want to switch between color palettes, you have to go into the submenu pages where you lose that live feed. So you can't just go ahead and be changing that around and still have your live feed still up. The second thing is it does not show you how many satellites you have until you press a secondary screen, and that gives you an indication of how many you have. We can get there, as you see, on the secondary screen, but I have to go into another screen and then go back to the main screen to be able to get back to our normal flight mode. Another thing I didn't like about this is that when we toggle between the visual camera and the thermal camera, or vice versa, or when we go between picture mode and video mode, or vice versa, there is like a 5-second lag. The screen freezes out where you don't see information. It's not instant real time. And then in the app, you can go ahead and really dial in the sensitivity of those controls and parameters for each of those flight modes. Now that is a very nice feature to have. There is autonomous flight capability with this, where we can go ahead and do pre-programmed flight missions. So what I have done was I set up waypoints where we go ahead and point on your screen and set up with different waypoints, whether you want to be in a circle, you want to have them in rows, you can do them any which way that you can. We cannot do mapping capability with this in that app. So we would have to use like Pix4D or Drone Deploy to be able to do those. But in reference to the app that we use to control this drone, you can program autonomous flights where we can set up waypoints. We can go ahead and set up the orientation of the aircraft at each waypoint, and we can go ahead and set the altitude of each waypoint. Now you can set up sort of like pseudo maps where you can just go ahead and set out your waypoints like I'm showing you on the screen, and then we can kind of like do that. So if you want quick and dirty type of mapping where you want to do for search and rescue, you can do that as well. So we actually did several tests where we flew out 1,500, 2,000 feet away from the remote pilot, and it didn't have any problems and didn't hiccup. However, there was a couple times where it was inconsistent, where our actual signal indicator for our signal strength for the remote controller to the drone did dip down into the yellow and into the red. And we got into the red close as 500 feet away. Parrot does spec this drone with a 2.5 mile furthest distance away. We did a test. We had the aircraft indoors, and then we went outdoors to see how the signal strength would go ahead and dissipate. And we probably got about 80 feet away, and which was about a block away outside, and this aircraft then got down into the red. So the reason why I mention that is because I do not believe this is going to be a suitable application for SWAT. where we need to go ahead, fly in and be able to go up, maybe go up the second floor, clear all these different rooms and fly out. It is more in line with a closer drone that's not going to go as far as some of the other drones out there. So that's everything that we wanted to go ahead and share with you in our initial testing that we did for a whole week's worth of flying on here. I think that we hit all of the points as to all of the pros and the cons with this aircraft. And like I always like to mention, you know, there is no one magic drone out there that does everything well. You know, I could easily, and I have, if you go back to any of our other reviews on aircraft, we find, you know, we try to pick out the things that we don't like or some of the flaws in all the different type of aircraft. There is no such thing as a perfect drone. You have to find a drone that works for you within your budget and within the parameters that you have to work with. We do feel there is a good market for this aircraft for the people that, you know, have this within their means, meaning within a certain budget and within certain parameters. Again, we think that the fact that this is made in the United States, that this has all the data encryption and security, it's an IP54 water-resistant drone, and it does have certain camera features and functionality that do work well. And I think if that's what you're looking for, this is the right type of drone. And if you have any questions, please write them down below in the comments section. And please, if you haven't yet, subscribe to our channel. Help us grow the channel even more so that we can bring you even more comprehensive reviews on future products. So with that said, thanks very much for staying through this long video, and we'll talk to you soon. Stay safe out there. If you like this video and like to see more free videos in the future, please subscribe to our YouTube channel. And while you're at it, if you're interested in free lessons on how to fly drones, discounts on drone equipment, discounts on insurance, or access to our exclusive drone video library, check out our website, steelcityflightacademy.com.